Really interested to see that Joe Biden's reported pick to become special assistant to the Secretary of Defence for China believes strongly in the need to win at great power competition against China. This would seem to indicate there's not going to be a sort of, rapprochement between the Biden administration and Beijing.
First of all, thanks for having me, Tom, and for mentioning my U.S. Navy Reserve affiliation. As always, as I'm not on duty, these views are my own. Right. So what we're seeing is the word competition, which was the same word in National Defense Strategy 2018, the same word being used in the Trump administration. And as we've been talking about the last few months, we were wondering if there was going to be, changes in that word. And we've already seen multiple references to competition, or even just this morning, the National Security Council spokeswoman Emily Horn at the White House said that we are here to outcompete China. Now, what's interesting is so far they've focused on domestic economic competition. President Biden has talked about continuing some of the Trump investments in new technology like artificial intelligence, trying to ensure that manufacturing continues to go up the value chain within the U.S. and win that way. We haven't seen more discussion about military conflict or competition and things, but we should kind of expect a steady ride in the near term when it comes to the policy.
Yes, well, that will be the interesting thing in comments on things such as Taiwan. Meanwhile, China sanctions. It's sanctioning outgoing Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and 27 others. What's their issue here?
Right. So one of the final announcements before the turnover of the administrations was Secretary Pompeo named China's action against the Uyghurs and Muslims in the Xinjiang region as genocide. They're the first country to do this, and this steps up the rhetoric and the potential legal implications and sanctions that would be available against China for the actions taken in the Xinjiang region against Uyghurs and non-Muslims. So they did that right before the administration change. Now, what's very interesting is that the new Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has basically already gone on record and said that he agrees with that characterization. So once again, you'll see you're kind of seeing a seamless ride between there. And there's pros and cons of having made that announcement just before the change in administrations versus now. Of course, as you can expect, there were very harsh words. I think they, called Secretary Pompeo a liar and a clown. And one change you will see is that you will see more steady rhetoric, and more traditional rhetoric from the White House in response to that, rather than, some of the more fiery rhetoric that we've expected over the last several years. Whether that makes a constructive difference policy-wise, not sure, but you will see a stark difference in the type of rhetoric being used on those issues.
Yeah, no longer a case of just watching and updating Twitter. We've got 2 days, I think, until the Russia-US nuclear deal expires, and now Joe Biden is urgently seeking an extension. Will this happen, and if not, what are the consequences?
Yeah, just coming up in the next couple of weeks, it would be the expiration of the START Treaty, which is the only standing now U.S.-Russia nuclear arms treaty in existence. Now, remember, this is largely symbolic in one respect, which is it only limits U.S. and Russia to 1,550 deployed warheads each, and each of them have about 6,000 total. The next country down has about 300, which is China, and then any other country has maybe 100 or 200. So the significance here is that that number of 1,500 wouldn't grow. However, we know that if 1,500 nuclear weapons were deployed by either side, it would be beyond catastrophic. So that's why I go back to saying it's somewhat symbolic, as there are going to be multiple disagreements between U.S. and Russia in the diplomatic sense on cyber issues, on the poisoning of Alexei Navalny recently, and several other things. So what this would do is sort of hold constant that one issue and sort of show a new commitment to the nuclear non-proliferation regime, but at the same time start to address in a harder stance some of these other issues.
You mentioned Alexei Navalny, for want of a better description, the Russian opposition leader, certainly driving most of the opposition. It's hard to without a formal political party. He's back in Russia. He was arrested. The government there, Vladimir Putin, essentially saying, look, this is just a normal legal process. I don't think anyone really believes that. Where to from here? Because a staggering number of Russians have been watching various videos put out by Navalny that are very damaging to the government. So do they need to tread carefully on this? That is, Vladimir Putin and his government need to tread carefully about what they do from here?
Well, when you asked the first question, which is what to expect from here, we have very similar cases over the last several years that have ended in tragedy. In fact, you might remember the Magnitsky Act, which is the U.S. law against crimes against humanity, is actually named after Sergei Magnitsky, the lawyer who was killed and beaten in prison in 2012 for trying to expose Russian corruption. Alexei Navalny, his actual profession, besides being the opposition leader, he runs a nonprofit that tries to look at corruption into Russian officials. The kind of line of work that is expected to get you pretty much where he is. Fortunately, he has survived and he has lived to tell the tale. What we can expect is Putin to really separate himself, verbally from the Russian justice system, trying to make it look like it's a free and fair justice system. But he could very easily be thrown into prison for several years. And the question is can the case against him and the heightening sort of rhetoric and action that I talked about previously from the U.S. and others make any substantive change with Russia? But in the near term, unfortunately, the examples have shown that hasn't been able to move the ball forward. So we'll see.
Jason Israel, good to have you back and get your thoughts. Talk again soon. Thank you.